to it done.
And we're live. Welcome to the Idaho Sheriff live stream broadcast with Dan Wilson for Kootenai County Sheriff, where we discuss all things liberty without compromise. I'm your co-host, Donna Wilson, here to screen your questions and comments. We invite all questions. Dan's going to answer them. You're only going to be censored or put in a timeout if you're being inappropriate or you're flooding the comment section with just unnecessary comments that don't move the discussion forward. Anyone with a question, just put that right into the comment section of whichever platform you're watching. And as always, for the most interactive and full screen experience, join us on Facebook or YouTube. But if you are over there on Instagram, we're going to do our best to include you in the conversation. Please, everybody, take a moment to share this live broadcast right now to your profile so your friends can join right on in. If you're listening back to the Idaho Sheriff podcast, thank you for joining us. And remember, listen and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your shows. Did you know that Dan Wilson is the only sheriff candidate here in Kootenai County recommended as the constitutional sheriff for our county by Sheriff Richard Mack? There's been rumors that there's another one, but there's only one. It's Dan Wilson. Now here he is.
Good evening, folks. Thanks for joining. 60 days, a little bit less than 60 days, 59 days until voting the general election on November 5th. Now, I may have a few days off, but you get the general idea. We're down to the last 2 months, and I'm so glad that you joined me tonight, especially if you're in Kootenai County, where I am attempting to reach everybody in this community, no matter what your political ideation is. If you love liberty without compromise, I am the man for sheriff for this county that has been speaking about my platform and my ideas for the past 10 months. Those that say that I don't articulate or ever come down to the bones of what it is that I believe or what my plans are, well, you obviously are being disingenuous and you have not taken the time to go back over the 21 plus live events that we have archived on our YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram sites, or come to any of my numerous town halls or any of the public forums. So
I would actually argue that this has been the most substantive campaign that Kootenai County has ever witnessed.
I agree.
So to hear anything otherwise, that there's no depth there, you don't really answer, how are you going to do the things you say you're going to do, you're vague, nothing but platitudes. It's quite the opposite, because we definitely challenge those statements.
If you happen to be from the greater North Idaho, Eastern Washington, Western Montana area, welcome as well. I love hearing from all you patriots across the fruited plains. And if you are around the world, remember that America is the last great hope. And once America goes, we'll be back to the dark ages for a millennium. A long time.
We've already got some of you that are submitting questions. So I just want to let you know, continue to keep those questions coming in, and I will get those over to Dan here shortly. You know, this has been another action-packed week. I think as the weeks roll on in this race, every week becomes more and more interesting, more going on, more appointments, more people stopping you.
Stakes are higher.
The stakes
are higher.
People are paying attention. And you've been called a lot of things this week in particular.
Yeah.
What are some of those things you've been, either names you've been called or things you've been accused of?
Well, let's see. Rhino is a common one.
That's easy.
I mean, I think that's almost like
overused.
saying you are racist, if you just apply it and it magically
Like, what does
makes
that
you
mean?
so. Let's see. The other one is the newest one is Fed. This comes straight from the Norris camp. So Norris is attempting to tell people in this community that Dan Wilson is a Fed, the man who has done more to stand up for the citizens' rights of this county and to bring us back to the writings of the founders, somebody that grew up in this region that has been known. All you have to do is go next door. I've been around for over 40-something years. But yeah, the Fed would be more applicable to D.C. Matari, who came from Washington, D.C., and Bob Norris, who worked under Homeland Security at Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. In fact, people have often speculated maybe they're still both working for DHS. I don't know that Bruce ever did, but it's possible. And they hang around with a lot of former DHS, again, allegedly retired DHS agents right here in Kootenai County. So Yeah, definitely not a Fed. Let's see, what else have I been called?
Well, with the Fed accusation, also your history in this region, as we've talked about even today, being 20 miles, to
the west,
the west of this border, and being in this region your entire life, your roots go deep, family history. So you are a very trackable and traceable person as far as integrity goes in your timeline, your business and associations that you've had in the community, both friends and family.
Yeah.
Which is not going to be typical. Typically, you're going to have something you're not going to be able to find information on a person prior to a certain date.
Yeah, Bob Norris. We really don't know anything about Bob Norris before around, 2014, 2013.
And at that point, you've got to believe whatever he tells you because it's been scrubbed.
Well, he's the one that has routinely said that when he was at Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department under the Joint Regional Intelligence Center, that he held top secret clearances. Now, here's what I find interesting about Bob. If Bob really had these high security clearances, then you have to have an extremely clean background. Everyone knows this. But why did you spend $3,000 in 2019 campaign funds to Reputation Defender? And what do? They scrub information off the internet. Now, there's a lot of things that surround Bob that he probably wants buried. But yeah, Dan Wilson has never scrubbed anything off the internet. I don't need to. I've got a lot of people around here that know me. Some of these people have known me for my entire life. So far cry from DC Matari.
You've had people who had been homeschool teachers in your youth.
Yeah.
You've had people that are advocating for you, unrelated to even this specific conversation, but who went to grade school together with you and have known you to be a very consistent person their whole life.
Is it possible, and there's a couple more we can go over, but is it possible that those that are in leadership right now claiming that they are the true conservatives are actually the communists that have said all the right things and people have blindly just said, well, like Bob, I hear this all the time. Bob's a nice guy. He's done good things. And then when you say, well, what has he done? Crickets.
Oh, wait.
Crickets.
I think I have.
Yeah, crickets.
I'm a little slow on the draw.
Let's see. Here's another one. After last week, when I came out strongly objecting to the surveillance state through the license plate readers, now I've been labeled, and I think you have one of those clips from our screenshots, but I'm being accused of being anti-law enforcement, which is completely absurd. And by the way, Mike P.
I add that?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Let's show that. You can read
to the
that.
Stage here. Let's see. The Idaho Sheriff has been blocked from North Idaho News, the North Idaho News Group, local news outlet here on Facebook. And their representative, Mike P. said, well, that happens. We are pro-law enforcement, military, and first responder. If you got blocked, it's because you attacked one of those groups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if I need to read the rest.
Yeah, I'd read the rest because I think it's pertinent to the conversation.
You've taken this personal vendetta toward Sheriff Norris and turned it on the men and women of the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. I'm still not sure why someone running for sheriff would do that. You even bash a volunteer helicopter pilot that had an accident, which was a mechanical failure that resulted in loss of life. Now,
Mike, that actually is untrue. I actually have the National Transportation and Safety Board report that stated it was pilot error. So, Mike, you probably want to get your facts straight before you go running out the mouth saying something that's going to embarrass yourself. Now, I am first and foremost a protector of we the people. I am not so pro law enforcement that law enforcement comes at the expense of we the people. And the communists use this tactic all the time. So I understand, Mike, what you're doing, and I'm not going to allow you to get away with it. I can be simultaneously pro-law enforcement and with my policies as I have laid out for the past 20 plus weeks, where I've talked about accountability and training and the things that are lacking, the professionalism that needs to be brought back and the backing of those deputies that aren't part of the Deputy Sheriff's Association. I absolutely am pro-law enforcement when it is checked with the people, against the rights of life, liberty, and property. And I also was a volunteer police officer for 12 years, taking on all the liability, the responsibility, the exposure. How dare you, Mike P. How dare you tell anybody that I'm anti-law enforcement. What have you done for 12 years of your life free to the public that didn't include standing next to traffic, filming a sheriff while Wolf Lodge burns down? Now, when it comes to the rights of the people, I'm going to always side for people's rights to be secure. But we do not exchange our dangerous liberty for a certain security. And that includes when law enforcement that loses sight of that balance between taking care of the people and securing their rights versus not trampling on the people's rights. There is not a more pro-law enforcement candidate that is simultaneously acutely aware of the responsibility that law enforcement brings to protecting at the base level of government, the people's rights that shall not be infringed. So, Mike, you and I, we're going to tango. You want to keep this up? I'm going to keep exposing you for the nonsense you're saying. So keep that in mind, brother.
Now, to lighten things a little bit, I know there was at least one other name you were called this week, and it actually happened today.
What was that one?
Well, let's see. You had somebody whisper into your ear.
Yeah.
And they said, "Here you go, cupcake."
That's right. Now, Bob Norris had a town hall today.
Cupcake.
Bob Norris had another town hall today for the gray hairs, because that's the only people that show up is the retirees.
At 9 a.m. on a work day.
And he's talking about the scam and scammers. Now, Bob, what he could have done is said everything that he said in about 10 minutes or less, but he drug it out. It was like that class that you take that never ends. But he had a little handout that he brought for everybody in the audience to participate in. I guess that's because they can't see his big screen. I don't know.
The PowerPoint.
But he had Special Deputy Bruce Matari, who apparently doesn't have any work to do as the county commissioner. So he's once again hanging out as the special deputy, helping Bob pass out the school papers. And he came up behind me because I was paying attention to the front. And he passed me a paper and says, "Here you go, cupcake." So, bro, I don't know what your deal is. That's a little creepy.
A little bit.
You might want to try some man type of banter, not stuff that's like cringy, creepy. I don't know. I'm not a cupcake, but I'll leave it at that.
we got Linda Cook on Facebook. She says, "Gray hairs for Wilson." Linda has
believe me, I love gray hair.
Beautiful silver hair. We do have questions coming in. I don't know if you're ready to field those yet, but while Dan's deciding on that, okay, I'm just going to remind you, we will get to all these questions. So just keep putting them in the comment section. I am carefully tracking them, so it's not that we're forgetting them. We just got to get to them in a row here. So one, we have a gentleman joining us on YouTube that originally he was asking you if you would be a constitutional sheriff, but he was paying attention to our intro and he said, "Okay, I appreciate that." So he loves that you have Sheriff Mac's support. That's great. What is the first responsibility that a constitutional sheriff has?
To protect the people's rights as found in the Bill of Rights, to be that buffer, that interposition, if you will, between an out of control, unaccountable government and the people of his county.
All right. The next question, I think this is going to be a toughie. It's coming from Stephanie Fetzer.
Oh, hello, Stephanie.
I believe at the time she chimed in, I believe I'm understanding what her question is in response to when we were talking about the accusation of being a Fed and then saying, look, Dan's roots here in history go deep. So it's very easy to understand who he is, where he came from, his associates, business dealings, and all of that. So her question is, how about your Instagram accounts that you have locked down?
Well, Stephanie, there are many people in this community that still have access to those. But because I'm running a campaign, I do lock them down because I have personal pictures of family on them. So if you want a personal, Stephanie, I'm gonna actually throw this out for anybody that's listening that Stephanie has this question. And if she's claiming that there's nefarious things, those of you that have access to my other two accounts, my private accounts, DW Wilson and the Kilted Killer, I will make you a deal. You come meet with Donna and I at an open place. I will bring those and we can go through each one of those, photos on Instagram or my posts so you can see them in their entirety. But you have to agree to come and actually look at it.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. The BC Preacher has maybe a more involved comment that possibly transitions to another topic here. Since the sex trafficking seems to be a topic, and Norris says that there's no cases of trafficking reported, or I believe he said no evidence.
No evidence.
So his question is, what would you do in regards to trafficking? And I think step number one is admitting that there's a problem. You got to start with that.
Let's go ahead and actually, Quincy, I'm going to answer this question, but this was part of what my outline was for tonight. So, Don, I think we're going to go down to, let's say, number 6, and let's see if we can't play that Norris video on the human trafficking to set it up a little bit.
Give me a little a minute here.
Because this is absolutely something that I believe we're not talking about enough. So we're going to go ahead and play this a clip that Bob Norris stated again. He stated it before last year. It was at a town hall, I believe in Hayden, Idaho, where he was asked point blank, is there any signs of human trafficking taking place here in Kootenai County? And his response is he sees no signs of human trafficking taking place, but there could be some minuscule amounts of it taking place at massage parlors. Remember, human trafficking isn't just sex trafficking. It also includes human slavery. So Bob says, well, we don't really see any indications of it, but there might be. So do you have that clip ready? So this is last week at a town hall coffee event that Bob had up in Spirit Lake. For those of you who want to watch a more in-depth coverage, you can go to my YouTube page and you can see a special edition on this episode here. I might have to talk a little more.
I'm just not quite sure what I got going here.
There we go. That's the one.
And we're going to cut to a narrower shot that focuses in on Sheriff Norris as Quincy asks this question.
Problem with sex trafficking here in Kootenai County?
Well, you tell me. You know, you can arrest somebody for sex trafficking. Have you seen it?
I'm asking you.
Well, I'm asking you.
It's your job, not his.
Am I answering him or answering you?
You didn't answer me.
Listen, I know you're waiting for your YouTube moment. Okay. So here is what we will say.
Here's what we will say.
We have 350 police officers here in the state of Idaho. We're here in North Idaho. We have many civilians that are trained in sex trafficking. We do not find any evidence that there is sex trafficking going on here in Kootenai County.
Okay, we'll end that right here. So to recap, that's your, there we go. We're technically challenged at times.
Well, you know what? That got really confusing because it was a previous live with the picture and picture and picture and picture. So that's what was going on there. It was a brain twister.
I confused you.
Yeah.
So really, Quincy, you were there. You followed up a question based on 2 women that were there that provided therapy for children who had experienced sexual abuse. And so your question was quite timely, and you made that question, is sex trafficking taking place here? Do you all notice how Bob Norris responded to that? Now, he's the sheriff, the chief law enforcement officer of the county, 30 plus years experience down at Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. I mean, the guy handled, he says, assets like the CIA and the FBI. And yet he doesn't have a readily available answer. In fact, he projects back onto Quincy and he says, well, I don't know. Do we have a problem with sex trafficking? You know, you can make an arrest. And you said, basically, hey, I'm asking you the questions for you. Why is Bob Norris so unhinged about this question? There isn't one person that I talk to in this entire region, especially in Kootenai County, who believes there is no human trafficking taking place here. And when you double down, Bob, and you say things like, we see no evidence. I've used this analogy before. If somebody's murdered right down on Main Street, the body's on the ground, the murder weapon is nearby, blood is everywhere, and footprints that have walked through that blood pile and walked down the sidewalk. And you, instead of going to that crime scene, walk 3 blocks in the opposite direction. You can safely say, Bob, that you see no signs, no evidence of human trafficking taking place, but that doesn't mean that it's not happening. And I've contended that the reason why we're not looking for it is because we're worried what we're going to find in the net. And I've been connected with many very reputable, high-speed, third-party organizations that specialize in finding these rings. And I believe that if Kootenai County and the region needs extra resources to find where this is taking place, then we should be using these third-party reputable sources to help ignite the leads of what's going on so that we can begin to do our best to eradicate this evilness from our communities. And I'm going to tell you that in Spokane, which is 20 miles to the west, human trafficking is absolutely taking place in Spokane. We have a major interstate that runs through Spokane County, which then leads to Kootenai County. And that's I-90. We have major casinos here. So the real reason is that I don't think we're very motivated to truly find any of this trafficking taking place by the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. And that starts and ends with command. That has nothing to do with the patrolmen, the deputies that are out there on the front lines. This has everything to do with the policies that Bob Norris has not put into place to make this an issue and to make it a priority. But of course, when you're going to every coffee sheriff event there is, and, campaigning nonstop for the past, 12, 13 months, you would expect no less from that. So, Quincy, that's what I would do, and I am going to do. I've talked about this in length, that I will be partnering up with third parties to help ignite that fire so that we can start beginning to find out who these actors are and we can eradicate it from our communities.
Thank you for joining us on tonight's live stream broadcast. Yes, we are live. That means, well, unless you're listening back on the podcast, sorry, you're going to have to join us on another live broadcast Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Continue to put your questions into the comment section on whichever platform you're watching. If you're having any issues, we do have questions coming in on Instagram, so I'm going to flip to those in a minute. But if you're having any issues on Instagram, come on over to Facebook or YouTube for the full screen experience. Clark Al Britton on Facebook.
Hello, Clark.
I would love to see legislation requiring any asset forfeiture go solely to retiring existing budget so as not to create a perverse incentive to improperly contrive such events. Would you support that?
Well, Clark, I understand where you're coming from, and I'm not certain that we disagree. I'd love to talk with you more. In fact, I think, so here's how I would explain this. I'm against civil asset forfeiture, period, especially the way it currently is permitted. And that is related to drugs. Before conviction, they can liquidate assets and then give it to the feds and give it to local law enforcement. And I just believe that that's a gross end run around the Fourth Amendment. Look, if you have been convicted by a jury and the judgment states you have to liquidate these assets, I think it is very appropriate at that time to bring that back to do things like you're talking about, helping take care of the overall budget. But a lot of these are set by federal standards, what you can or can't do with the budget. I'm not interested in civil asset forfeiture money, which I know I'm putting a mark on myself because budgets are already tight. But I just think it's bad money, and I think it's a egregious thing for us to have started down in the so-called war on drugs.
Is that
that's
right?
it?
Okay. Quick question over. I'm gonna flip over to this Instagram user. Maybe it's a gotcha question from Scott Jensen. He wants to know. Hello, Scott. He wants to know if you like Harris.
Harris. Oh, Vice President soon to be President, Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I'm guessing that's
okay. Well, if you're talking about Kamala Harris, I think she's a communist, and I have zero love or respect for communists. They are still created by God, but as far as the communists go, We do not have any place in our country for these Marxists that are in essence destroying our country as we speak. So yeah, I'm not a Kamala fan.
John Michael Bauer over on Facebook. Thanks for joining us tonight. I know he's a busy guy, so the fact that he's hopping on here, it's a privilege. Former Captain Sumas told me in 2020 he could not remember when KCSO last did a John sting. As a former vice captain, he was a little surprised about that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a question, but an important comment to be noted.
Yeah, I find that interesting. And a John sting, of course, is related to prostitution. So look, folks, there's a lot of embarrassment that takes place. About 10 plus years ago in Spokane County, there was a regional task force made up by Washington State Patrol, Spokane PD, Spokane Sheriff's Office, I think Airway Heights PD, and they did one of these stings. And the Johns, those that were soliciting sex from these massage parlors, they fought very hard to keep their names off a list. And look, if you're doing these bad deeds, you're contributing. Most of these women that are involved in prostitution, a large section of them, even by the way, they're trying to change it statutorily, is in the realm of sex trafficking. Look, anytime a person has to violate their body to sell their body for others' pleasures at their own expense, that's wrong. That is morally wrong. And we shouldn't be blaming those victims. We should be going after those that are paying for those services. So Bauer, thank you so much for bringing that up. That's an excellent point.
Mike Marcourt on Facebook, he asks an important question here because we established toward the beginning of our broadcast tonight that some of the accusations as this race is ramping up is that you just have no substance. We don't know what your ideas are. It's vague, your platitude. Mm-hmm. Give me answers and insight. So I'm going to bear with me here as I read Mike's question, because I know he's taken some heat for this, sure. Even trying to advocate for his support of you. We know that illegal aliens have been bussed into our local communities. These are unvetted individuals. We see them everywhere. What should Norris be doing to alert the people of this issue? And what would you do to either arrest or deport illegals from south of the border?
Yeah. Well, again, you're hitting on a bullet point that I was going to talk in more depth, so we'll probably do a little bit out of order. But let me just say this from the very beginning. In fact, currently on my Instagram page, I reposted on my story one of my original video posts all the way back in February, where I said, here's the deal. We cannot locally arrest solely on the basis of immigration status. Okay, that's already been established. Now, Bob Norris has said in the Coeur d'Alene Press, back at his another coffee event, back January 25th of 2024, you can look up that article. He makes a statement that once let's see if I can find that statement so that I'm accurate. So this is what Norris says back on the 24th or 25th of January in Coeur d'Alene Press. Once they touch soil here in the U.S., they have all the rights of a U.S. citizen. That is false. Just so we're clear.
Is that now taken? Was there something else surrounding that? Kind of like the Bible scripture, you need to read it in context. Is there something there that we're possibly missing? Because that becomes the retort when you use that quote from that article. But that is his.
Yeah. So he's talking quite a bit, and I'd have to go through this article to find it. But let me just read it. Norris said Idaho's rules are similar. Deputies cannot detain someone. And I'm reading from the 25th of January, Coeur d'Alene Press. It says, passed in 2019, the Keep Washington Working Act prohibits state and local law enforcement officials in Washington from detaining or arresting someone solely to determine their immigration status or based solely on a civil immigration warrant, detainer, or hold request. Norris said Idaho's rules are similar. Deputies cannot detain someone solely because they think the person may have entered the country illegally. The sheriff said he wants community members to understand that all people in the U.S. have the same rights and protections regardless of immigration status. Once they touch soil here in the U.S., they have all the rights of a U.S. citizen, Norris said. Now, that is absolutely false. And we know this because there was a recent, just in the past week, a Fifth Circuit ruling that stated that, and I'll get the right name here, but it's Jose Paz Medina Cantu against U.S. And in the closing remarks, it says, illegal aliens don't qualify under the definitions of the people set forth in Verdugo, Urquidez, and Heller, not as a matter of common sense or court precedent. As to common sense, an illegal alien does not become part of the national community by unlawfully entering into it any more than a thief becomes an owner of property by stealing it. Okay, so today we were at a town hall and Norris is having to backtrack because he was not careful in his original statements. And he wants everybody to know that we cannot detain somebody illegally here based on immigration status. Now, the video that we're going to play shortly, I said just that. Norris tried to twist it. We caught him. We put it back around. But yes, we can't do something just because somebody is here illegally. We have to have the probable cause or reasonable suspicion to make the contact like we do with anybody else. But here's what we do. And this is really, Mike, where you want to know what my plan is. Because the state of Idaho failed to give us any legislation that would make it tougher to bring illegals into this state and into Kootenai County. We had legislation that should have passed, but the state refused to make things harder. They're not sticking up for us, even though the federal government, in violation of Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, is definitely not securing our borders. In fact, they're paying NGOs $1.5 billion to move all of these border crossers around the continental United States. Okay, so what do? Well, we have to get creative with existing laws, and we need to form a task force. We need to go on the offense, and we need to get our intel on these NGOs, because every one of these invaders that is bust or brought into the continental United States is being done by a non-governmental organization. Catholic charities, Lutheran charities, Jewish charities, the list goes on. And what we do is, if we know that these NGOs are purposely bringing people that do not belong here in the United States, well, with our task forces, when we target them lawfully, we make the arrests, we seize the vehicles, and we start lawsuits against these NGOs that are attempting to subvert our laws. So while it is not the smoking silver bullet, what it is it's putting us on the offense, kind of like what Norris should have been also doing at the same time. Norris claims often, in fact, prior to August 22nd here, just a few short weeks ago, he was continually telling people that he does everything to keep Kootenai County safe, and he works good with the local border control section chief. And he'll bring that section chief out for his little dog and pony shows. But here was where Norris failed. You see, ICE, Immigration Control and Enforcement, those are the federal agents that take illegals out of the United States and help to deport them. Well, they have this special program that's been around for 30 years. And I asked Bob back in May of this year, May 7th, on my live broadcast, you can find in our archives on YouTube, why he was not participating in ICE 287G. And that is a program that allows local law enforcement through the sheriff's office, especially in detention like jail, to become cross-deputized with ICE in order for the deputies to do the functions of the ICE agents that sometimes might be 2 days out from being able to come and take care of these incarcerated individuals that are found in the county jail. Now, Bob never said one word about this until that Center for Immigration Studies report came out. Theo Wold, former Solicitor General for Idaho, as well as a policy advisor for President Trump for 3 years, extremely smart man, been following him for a while. He has really been a watchdog on illegal invasion in the state of Idaho. And he published the reports from the FOIA records from ICE, naming Kootenai County as one of 3 counties in Idaho that was uncooperative. Now, when we finally see the real letter from Homeland Security, not just an email, where they officially state that Kootenai County has been in compliance, I'm going to wait until that comes out. But Theo Wold, in a live event, less than 24 hours after this story broke, when Norris was trying to protect the office and figure out what they were and weren't doing, he was asked publicly, by Theo Wold, will you join ICE 287G program? And Norris says, and whenever Norris is lying, listen for these words. Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely. He has no clue what 287G is, despite the fact that a dumb reserve officer, a businessman for 25 years that follows policies and looks at planning. I stated this back in May. While you were running around with your Fraternal Order of Police deputy gang, putting out mailers to help make certain that North Idaho Republicans were put in place over the KCRCC choices, that backstab that you did, that you accepted responsibility, but you didn't accept full responsibility when your own deputy, Nick Franson, the president of the FOP, came out and said, hey, we were given permission, but I digress. If Norris had been paying attention and truly being proactive, he would have been part of this 287G process, but he has not. And people in Kootenai County need to be constantly in Norris's business about this. Quit giving this man a pass. 4 years he's had to act and to secure this county, and in 4 years he has done nothing. So hopefully, Mike, that answers your question on that. And if not, I can articulate it even better in writing. I
even realized when that question was posed to Norris on that live broadcast, it was a softball question in that it allowed him the opportunity to respond, to say, absolutely, I will be a part of this, instead of a more difficult question that would have been, why have you not, that you are in your fourth year of your term, why have you not participated in this program to prepare your county? Here's what he says.
He'll say, well, because ICE says we are so cooperative.
That was the answer.
We just didn't need to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Hold Bob Norris and Special Deputy Bruce Matari, since he's in everybody else's business, accountable. Folks, we're getting down to the last 60 days. And I have for months been attempting to show you the difference between a man that loves his country, loves his county, wants to do good with the county, has a vision and a plan that I've articulated. And I've stood and I've said the unpopular things. My message does not change from group to group. It is the same over and over and over. I ask, for those of you who are still on the fence about Bob Norris, when will you start asking him the hard questions and holding him accountable, not letting him weasel his way out with some sorry mistake, question, answer that he's notorious for, never accepting full responsibility?
I want to let you know that there is a special segment live broadcast on exactly this topic with ICE 287G. That shows those video clips and shows Dan drawing that to Norris's attention months ago. So we have that archived. And so there is that special broadcast available that goes even further into that very important topic. That's on YouTube, archived on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So you can go watch that back to dig even deeper into that subject. I want to remind you that you still have time here in this live broadcast to submit your questions right into the comment section on any platform that you're watching. I love too when you guys are engaging in dialogue in that comment section. So keep that going. Remember, you can respond to each other as this live broadcast is going. And that's fun for us to watch and to see that the community cares and is involved. I've got a question coming in from Derek on Instagram. So once you hear this, I think it may be a matter of not that you necessarily have the answer to the question, but I'm pretty sure that you can direct him to better find this answer. Right. So the question is, if you've got time, is there anything that we can do to prevent China from buying farmland in Kootenai County?
Well, I want to know the same thing. I want to know why the Chinese have in any capacity been able to buy any land. Now, I started watching the Chinese buy land all the way back when the Clintons were still in office. You guys may recall that they were buying up a lot of national park space because of our debt. We were trading that back and forth with them. And this was in the late 90s when Clinton was still in office. But yeah, the sheriff does not set the laws in the state of Idaho. So you need to take your state legislators and senators up, to task as to why they aren't protecting us. And I think this is a national security issue. I think that we have no clue how much of our country has been sold off by our so-called congressional representatives and big business. And I'm very, very concerned about it for a whole host of reasons, including we know that they have purchased a lot of land near military installations, military bases. This spells bad news for the entire country, and I'm very fearful as to what the real intent of that is.
As you guys are taking time to put more questions there into the comment section, I think this goes back a little bit to what you were talking about, but I find this a very interesting topic that Norris seems to be kind of on your coattails or running somewhat of a copycat campaign that's been very curious to us for a guy that's supposedly the rhetoric is he's done so well in his term in office. We hear a lot, Norris has done a good job. And it's like, well, why is he a few steps behind you on a lot of this? So I know that you had some videos queued, and I don't know if you want to go back to that or we're just moving on.
I think what we'll do is we'll go to bullet 5, and we're going to talk about a little more in depth on the LPR issue that was brought up before the Board of County Commissioners last week when they were looking to adopt fiscal year budget 2025. Right before this video plays, I had just had the letter that I had written in opposition to this LPR software. A little background, they installed this software on 36 patrol vehicles. They had already installed license plate reading cameras on 36 patrol vehicles. And then they were wanting the board to approve, in essence, over 5 years, just a little under $105,000 worth of software licensing. So I had just had my letter read into the record and in opposition. So right after I read this record, or my record was read rather, I'm starting to get tired or something.
Yeah, that's okay.
After my letter was read into the record, Bob Norris conveniently was ready to, engage in his rhetoric. We're going to listen to him for a few minutes, and then we're going to show you some things that we're going to do some more I Caught You, Bob. So let's go ahead and play that.
Okay, we're going to give that a try. There we go.
I have seen federal abuse, and as your sheriff, that federal abuse will not be here in Kootenai County. I think it's important that we take proactive steps in securing our privacy and fighting crime. This is a program that's been here in Kootenai County for 16 years. 16 years they have had license plate readers throughout this county.
But not on 40 patrol vehicles.
Unlike the current request, the cameras that are current have 360-degree capability and run 24/7. We are asking primarily for officer safety purposes for that vehicle in front of that deputy
Hogwash.
to check that plate for a wanted person, wanted in a felony, stolen vehicle, etc., etc. This is an officer safety feature that is now available to warn the deputy of a close proximity of a hazard. The ALPR system has worked well for us without any abuse here in Kootenai County. As we speak, we have an international crime network that is attacking Kootenai County that's been identified through this license plate recognition software.
Wow.
That's a big deal.
International crime circuit right here in Kootenai
Are
County.
they human traffickers?
We have been able to effectively combat crime. Kootenai County is growing. We are getting more and more sophisticated people who are here that want to commit crimes. You have no idea how crime is starting to percolate here in Kootenai County. It's not quality of life that we see quite yet. However, it's going in that direction. I'm seeking a tool set that not only can help us fight crime, but effectively, with the limited resources we have, also put the safeguards in place to ensure the officer's safety and your public privacy.
Okay, let's put that on pause real quick here.
Those.
Go ahead.
Is it going to continue to play? Because I want to.
I'm doing my best.
Right.
I got it.
So Bob is doing this big intro. You know, we have to have this for officer safety. Again, what he's doing is, for those of you who have not been in law enforcement, and my former law enforcement or current law enforcement friends understand this, it's not magic like that. You're not just going to be magically driving around every single day and all of a sudden this is going to go off. So they're trying to make something bigger out of this than what the reality of it is. Could it potentially catch one of these bad actors when it's right in front of you? Sure. But you can also do the same thing running plates or, having a tip. So he's building this up and he's like, we have been doing this for 16 years. Well, those are stationary cameras. And yes, they are 360 degrees, but they're not on a patrol car driving the entire county all hours of the day, 24/7. And furthermore, when he starts talking about, we're going to do things to ensure the public safety and our safety for the data. Again, he's saying we are going to do this. So I just wanted to pause a little bit here so you could hear this. Let's go ahead and pick back up and then we'll finish with the last comments.
Okay, I'm just going to pull this screen up again, a little bit of toggling around.
Thank you for that, by the way.
And then, of course, I don't like
Not that
there.
one. That's not the one.
That's the wrong
That's
one.
not the right one.
Yeah, so I'm still toggling and you're still
Let's
talking.
do this one right there. Yep.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't work like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Bob goes on, in essence, what he says is he starts disparaging a certain sheriff candidate. If he had access to this information, it could be very dangerous in his hands. So,
In front of the commissioners when we ask for these requests, and that we should be doing this every year to ensure compliance with the policy that I'm going to set forward with you today. All I'm asking for is the tool sets to get the bad guy. But I want to focus on making sure that these tool sets can't be abused. Frankly, there are some people that are running for sheriff that I would be very concerned about having access to these tool sets. Very concerned. They have no demonstrated history of ever properly handling these type of protocols and programs. That's something that's very important. So these things need to be in place. That's why I'm going to do it. There is currently no statute in Idaho governing the retention of this data.
all right, we'll finish
So
there.
here's my.
So this gaslighting buffoon literally projects on me as the candidate what he himself is actually doing. You see, I had already just had previously my letter in opposition saying that we will not trade our dangerous liberty for a certain security, that we accept risk as Americans, that we don't want to be surveilled. And you know what? I don't give a damn whether or not they've been doing it for 16 years. We have seen the continual erosion of our privacy and our rights. And we say, no more, we're done. Kootenai County, lead the charge. And then maybe those in all the other outlying cities that also don't want the intrusion can put the pressure on their law enforcement and their city leaders to do the same thing. But this buffoon gaslights and tries to tell people that in my hands, it could be dangerous. So he's admitting that the data can be used for nefarious things. Thank you, Bob, for admitting that. Notice that he also says the policies I'm going to set forth. Now, I'm going to go back to slide number 2. This is a public records request that I put into the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. How does Bob know how to catch up with me? Because of my public records request. Mm-hmm. The public records request
he
that I put in go before his desk, so he knows exactly what I'm fishing for. On August 1st of this year, I put in a records request. You can see that first red square shows it as 8-1. Let's go to the second page. This, I believe, was from Lieutenant Headland. And we're going to look at the first box here. And this is very important. Motorola is providing the demo software. I could not tell you the exact demo timeline, except to say that during budget discussions, they agreed to extend our demo until the start of the fiscal year. If it is approved, we will pay and begin a contract. If it is not approved, the demo will end as previously stated in the initial records request. That was one of my previous ones. We have 28 Ford Explorers and 8 150s with the LPR capabilities in demo. There are also 10 demo accounts for LPR cell phone apps, which provides the same LPR capabilities. So notice this. This is something that Bob has not bothered to let the people know. These license plate readers that we're now debating, the public saying we don't want them, he's been using them for several months in demo. The records request is very explicit right there. He won't even tell the people we've been using these for the past few months. What kind of discussions would ensue if people really knew that despite the fact that we don't want these and you're going before the board to get the approval of the $105,000 or the $20-some thousand per year, that the people should have known that you were going to put those into service, and then all of his sycophants, and you know who you are online. You've been coming after the people that have been speaking out against this privacy issue by saying, well, why didn't you show up to any of the forums beforehand? It's because they've been running these things way in advance. And your own sheriff won't level with you. He won't tell the truth. And furthermore, bullet point number 2, he states, we do not have any past or current LPR policies. Deputies should refer to the NCIC ILETs for license plate information obtained by LPR. Do you understand how ridiculous this is? Bob is feigning like he hasn't used these yet for several months, and he's going to use them. But you know what? He's going to, with all this powerful data information that he already said that a certain sheriff candidate, if he got a hold of who doesn't have any experience, Bob, I actually ran a car with an ALPR in it. I understand exactly what they are. You don't even have a policy in place to protect the people or the data. Your own people say you do not have any past or present policies, and you gaslight. You don't even own up to the fact that you didn't even think about it until this dumb reserve officer, this no-name that's not a true competitor of yours, had to ask a records request and write a letter to put you on notice. Those of you who are still on the line as to whether this is a constitutional man or not, somebody that truly cares about you, he does everything by the seat of his pants. You don't need a 30-year dude that spent all of his time in the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department doing God knows what since he's never produced an actual resume. You need somebody that actually has proven leadership and the ability to run major corporations for 25 years and still be in business and hold contracts with big medical, federal government, state governments. This sheriff, this buffoon, has continually put the entire county at risk with his dereliction of duties, securing policies. We're not even going to talk about the helicopter policies and the fact that he can't even manage that program right now and the inherent risk that the county's in by not only my belief, but by others on my team who were part of air bureaus down in California and understand how it works. And we're saying the paperwork doesn't match up. So Bob Norris needs to be held accountable by you, the people. It can't just be me. He needs to answer as to why he insinuated that this was a program that wasn't even in operation yet, instead of sitting there lecturing people as to how this program should be working, what he's going to do to put policies in place to protect the people. You're way far behind the curve, Bob, and you only did it because you got called out like every other time you get called out.
Another thing that occurred during that Board of County Commissioners meeting where they were discussing the LPRs in the budget line item was County Commissioner Bruce Matari lectured one of the citizens when they came up to the mic to voice their concern about deploying this technology.
Yeah, great point.
He lectured this constituent saying, you've had months to talk about this, and I don't know why you now have to come to me in a public forum. You could have called me previously. We could have had a conversation about this. There have been months to discuss this. Why are you showing up here now? So I'm curious for your response to a comment like that when these are public forums where citizens can come in and observe the proceedings and ask their questions. Was that not an appropriate place for a taxpaying citizen to ask that question?
The community meetings is the appropriate place to have these discussions. Not to be lectured by the Board of County Commissioners as to why we need to accept it, but to allow us to ask questions, unscripted questions, to be able to battle out our concerns in the community, and for you guys to make the case as to why something should or should not be. So, no, I mean, if you would have done things correctly, you would have had these meetings way before you put them in demo mode. I mean, shouldn't you, before you even engage with Motorola Solutions, taking a survey to find out if your own citizens were even on board? Before you purchased 38 cameras, and I've got the records of how much that cost us. Those cameras were purchased and then installed on the vehicles down in Utah where they build out our patrol vehicles. I don't know why we don't do them locally. But that would have been the time to ask the people, not before you wasted taxpayer dollars on cameras that the people are clearly saying we do not want, and you're gaslighting people again by trying to manipulate them by saying it's officer safety. It's officer safety. It's officer safety. That's a outright lie.
It's definitely been a hot topic. There's comments coming in on Instagram. One, Charles Meyer says, so we should trust Norris, but not Wilson. So that was made evident in that video clip. So why would we let anyone have that power is his question.
Absolutely.
Danny's question to you over on Instagram. Thanks for joining us tonight. He says, is your policy going to get rid of body cameras as well?
No, body cameras are going to stay. And I know that I have a very good friend of mine that's on my transition team who spent a long time in law enforcement. And he's of the old opinion that they are more problematic than, useful. I used a body camera when I was with Liberty Lake for 8 years. And what I liked about them, and there are pros and cons. I mean, there absolutely are. Number one, the cameras cannot perceive the same senses that we do, and it gives you only 180 degree view. So it can't tell people what the officer was smelling, the other noises that he was hearing, the perceptions at that time. However, what's great is I don't know how many times my camera came back to be extremely helpful in writing out statements from suspects and capturing things that, when you're in that adrenaline state where Graham versus Connor, the objective reasonableness standard has allowed officers to act a certain way within the confines of the law, no armchair quarterbacking. But it is great to be as accurate because as a police officer, I wanted every one of my reports to be factually correct. I didn't want anybody ever receiving an erroneous report due to bad memory or a false perception. Although, again, my law enforcement friends are going to come and say, don't say about our perception because the objective reasonableness standard. Chill, guys. I understand that. I'm not disputing that. But I do like it because it also has proven many times to show that the conduct of law enforcement officers is actually far greater than what some of the lying public at times will say. And when I say lying public, not insinuating that the public at large is lying, but we all know those types that will lie about law enforcement. Law enforcement has lied about people. I get it. But overall, I think body cameras are a must in this day and age, especially with everybody in a cell phone.
I want to let you know that we also have a special segment regarding the license plate recognition that we recorded earlier this week, and that is available on YouTube, Facebook, and I think that's been uploaded to Instagram as well. But if not, you can catch it on YouTube. That has been very well received, is getting a lot of views, so we know that it's a hot topic. Here's what I believe to be an educated question coming from Instagram, and Jake, thanks for joining us tonight. And if I get the intent of this question wrong, you can come in that comment section and correct me. He said, do you know of all officers with access to or running the NCIC or ILET system have done their training and completed their certification to use the system. So I think he's possibly giving you a little bit of pushback.
Sure.
That, they've done training. So it's not like they aren't qualified to use these systems.
That's not the point. My problem is not in the deputies that will be utilizing these LPRs, not by any stretch. Again, it's similar to when we query a license when we're running a plate or having dispatch do it, but this is on steroids, and Motorola has already stated this. You can go back to my special edition. We read Motorola's own disclaimers. They absolutely sell that data. And again, we can argue and say, well, they're not selling your personal registration, but the fact is that data is worth something, and it is an invasion of privacy. And the ACLU has been suing, government over this fact. So no, I'm not insinuating that the deputies using these systems are corrupt, but I am going to, double down and say that in the wrong hands, all technology is inherently bad, and we don't want a Skynet situation to where, all this data is accumulated. Like even Norris said this data is, dangerous in the wrong hands. So I do, though, believe that the deputies in Kootenai County that would be running the current ones, I don't believe there's any nefarious actions on their part at all.
We've had a really active hour. We are just at over an hour, so I want to get to where we're wrapping this up. Remember, you can join us every Wednesday night live at 7 p.m. So if we didn't, I think we got to all the key questions. I do want to throw one more out there because it's a deviation from the other things that we've discussed tonight. So Deputy Northwest over on Instagram asked, do you think it was necessary for Norris to show up to the Wolf Lodge fire when at this time there's nothing criminal to have occurred?
Well, that's a great question. Of course, online, it's been quite heated as to, what happened. Here's what I'll break down. So Wolf Lodge, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is this world famous steakhouse on the east end of Coeur d'Alene. It's in this very old, unassuming shack. It looks like you drove into the backwoods and are going into a cabin.
Or summer camp almost.
Best steaks in the world. Yeah. And on Monday, Labor Day, it caught fire and unfortunately burned to the ground. Now, what Deputy Northwest is referring to is that Sheriff Bob Norris somehow appeared on scene, and I believe it was North Idaho News, Mike Petum, who, by the way, has stated that he does press releases for Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, unless it was a typo. But he happened to be there and filming Bob, and Bob Norris is standing in front of the fire, and he's saying, I'm reporting to you from. And he was given the business because I look, for me, I think that it's important oftentimes for a sheriff to show up in support of a community, especially an establishment like Wolf Lodge. I think that was appropriate, but I think that the appropriateness extends to not making it about you. We have public information officers like Lieutenant Zach Sifford for a reason. They are there to offer information to the public, to talk about safety issues, to provide support wherever needed. But for Norris in a campaign year to show up in his jumpsuit and his drop leg holster and to say, I'm reporting, as if he's working for, CBS or, I don't know, NBC was, it was, I personally don't believe that I would have made that same, decision. I would have stayed in the shadows and supported however I could. So anyway, great point, great question. Our condolences to the people that owned Wolf Lodge, their employees, a favorite place of ours. We pray that you get rebuilt in rapid time. And Don and I would love to be among your very first patrons for reopening. So anyway, that's my view on that.
Yep. Thank you. It's been a really good hour. We thank all of you who've joined us over the course of this hour tonight. And then, of course, we're available for replay any old time. And you can share that to your timeline even after we wrap it up tonight.
Yeah. Well, remember, folks, we have 60 days plus or minus left in this campaign. We need everyone who loves the message of liberty without compromise to come out strong for us. We need you to be sharing all of our posts. One of the things that we have as the underdog is we have the ability to go out and reach and put our message out. I met a lady yesterday, a very kind woman who saw me in the store, and she said, hey, I know who you are. I've been following you. We support you. Our family supports you. And I said, this means a lot because right now the KCRCC believes, as the Republican Central Committee, they believe that they hold the power to compel people that don't want to look into who's running, who's on the ballot, to go for their guy. And it looks like Bob North, despite the fact that he backstabbed them, he's a double agent, that he's going to be rewarded by staying on their recommendation in the fall. And I told her, I said, the ability for us to reach out through social media, to give the message to those in this community and beyond that are thirsting for leadership. Somebody that levels and says, the emperor has no clothes, danger is on the horizon, we do not exchange our dangerous liberty for certain security, so on and so forth. The message of liberty without compromise. You folks are the ones that are the hope for this race. We will defy. Being an independent is not a bad thing, especially in the role of the sheriff. Being an independent is a net gain because the people in this county need to understand that it doesn't matter what your ideation is. I happen to believe in very, very opposite things than some on the left do. But I do believe in fidelity to the Bill of Rights and to protect everybody equally under the law, where nobody is greater, nobody is lesser. So it is for you out there, wherever you are, that is not a part of a party, that's not a part of a group, but are hardworking, you love your family, you love your community, and you want a leader that will lead you to a certain security, but not take your liberty away. I'm your man. So share every chance you get the message, share our posts, share our YouTube videos, send us emails. Look, I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of emails that have come in the past week. I am behind. I will get to you. Several of you I owe a phone call to. Don't despair. You're on my list. I will get to you. But remember, we did not descend from fearful men. We descended from men who understood the times. They acted accordingly, and they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. We have hard times in front of us, but a united people together, we can be that shining city on a hill for the rest of the state of Idaho and the surrounding communities to see what a united people together look like, who come together to secure their liberty. Let's be that example for the rest of the world to see. May liberty live. God bless you all. May God bless Kootenai County. We'll see you next time.
We have a public town hall coming up, Hayden Public Library. That's on Monday, September 9th. We've got the room reserved at 12 noon. Maybe you can stop by on your lunch break for those of you who actually work for a living. Love to see you there. You can meet Dan face to face, talk to him in person, and that would be wonderful. Remember, you can always donate securely online. We need those donations for the finish line to this race, securely online at theidahosheriff.com. Thank you for joining us tonight for the Idaho Sheriff live stream broadcast with Dan Wilson for Kootenai County Sheriff. We are here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Idaho Sheriff. That's going to give you automatic reminders when we go live. And for the Idaho Sheriff podcast, listen and subscribe wherever you get your shows. Learn more about Dan Wilson, his platform, policies, and viewpoints. They really are all right there on the website at theidahosheriff.com. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Stay strong and courageous. Always stay courageous and always have hope. Good night.
Good to see you tonight, Clark. Thanks for joining us. Lisa, thanks for joining us on Facebook. We had a hippie over on YouTube. It's not any hippie that I know, but we got a hippie. Thank you, Tasha, and a lot of friends over on Instagram. Thanks for joining us tonight.